Korea is forming its own international identity. And I think a lot of Korean people can't even see it. There's this movie that came out in 2012. The name of the movie is Cloud Atlas. Now, this movie was a pretty big deal. It did pretty poorly in the box office, but it was made to be quite a big movie. It has Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, the agent from The Matrix. I forgot that guy. Everyone says I look like him. But Tom Hanks and Halle Berry. Now, Tom Hanks is a pretty fucking big deal. Tom Hanks is like the biggest movie star in America. One of the biggest. Which makes him one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Right? So if you have a movie with Tom Hanks in it, it's supposed to be a big fucking deal. Now, when I ask my Korean friends about this movie, I say, have you seen Cloud Atlas? Do you know what Cloud Atlas is? Many of them say no. And then when I keep probing and I pull it up, and maybe there's a weird, different name for it in Korean, but I probe and I look it up and I show them, and I go, yeah, that movie that has Bae Doona in it. Yes, that movie with Bae Doona. Now, it was based on a book made in about 2004. But you're seeing why this movie is so important to show you what's happening with Korea and the rest of the world is that this movie takes place in like 5 or 6 different time periods and 5 or 6 different places. I know one of the places is like San Francisco, the other one's a desert island. And one of the places, in one of the time periods, is actually Neo-Seoul, okay? That's crazy. Now, 20 years ago, that would have been Neo-Tokyo, for sure, A long time ago, let's say late 80s, early 90s, when people thought of Asia, all through the 90s, even into the early 2000s, when people thought about Asia, they thought of Japan and China. And we didn't much care for China because it's just this gigantic and very poor country. Nowadays, people have to care because they're becoming quite rich and quite powerful and on the world scene. But for the longest time, when we thought of Asia, we thought of Japan and China. And we were really much more interested in Japan because they're rich, so they're more like us. And they're just weird because they're from an Asian culture which is completely alien to us. So it was always, every time you needed an Asian thing or an Asian character, it was always Japanese. And in a bunch of not older, but 90s movies, if you want to talk about, or books, if you wanted to talk about like post-apocalyptic world, and you wanted to talk about an Asian city in that post-apocalyptic world, it was always Neo-Tokyo, right? And then I watched this movie, Cloud Atlas, and I'm watching, and bam! They're in Neo-Seoul. Now, maybe to Korean people, they don't see this as such a big deal, and I think even to Americans, nobody sees it as a big deal, but to me, I think it's a big deal because you're starting to see a shift. No longer is Korea just some other country in Asia, that was, most Americans know about like the Korean War and North Korea. But with this movie, you could see that people are starting to think about Korea as its own separate country. It's, when we think of Asia now, we're not only thinking of Japan and China, we're thinking about Japan, China, and Korea. When I've seen it in a lot of modern television shows too, where they'll make a mention to Korean culture, or when they have an Asian dude, it's not a Chinese dude, it's a Korean dude. This happened with the show Lost. I think Lost came out in like 2006 or 2007. And it was amazing to me because I'm watching the first episode, I'm going on, and then there's this Asian couple, and the Asian couple is Korean. And at that time was like really when I just barely started getting into having Korean friends and getting into Korean culture and stuff. And I was so happy, like, yay, Korean people are being represented in like American mass media. And when I asked my Korean friends about it, I said, have you seen Lost? Did you see the Korean couple that's in it? And they would say, yeah, that actress is really famous. Or they would say, oh, the Kyopo who plays that guy, his Korean accent is really funny. It's hilarious to me. And I would go crazy because I was trying to tell them, no, man, there's like this is a big deal for like Korean culture as far as like how it's seen on the world stage. When Americans writing popular media especially, but when Americans are thinking about Asia, it's not just Japan and China anymore. It's Korea as well. I mean, Lost by itself was also a big shift in the way we perceive Korea as being its own country in Asia. And this is happening a lot more and more. And you might think it's a little deal, but it's really not. It's really kind of a big deal because it means that Korea is making its own identity in the world. And I think that one of the reasons why Korean people are having such a hard time to see this is because a lot of my Korean friends are much more focused on like some athletes and some people. Like, Korean people think of Chan-ho Park and Ryu Hyujin and Heinz Ward, and like I have a bunch of stories to tell about them, but I'm trying to keep this video short. But like Heinz Ward, I think it's funny because he's half Korean. I don't think he speaks Korean, but still, Korean people are very proud of these. And when I was in Korea, like maybe 8 years ago, and I was an exchange student, I would go somewhere and they ask me, "Where are you from?" I say San Diego, and they go, "Chan-ho Park. Don't you know Chan-ho Park?" And I go, "Yeah, you pitched for San Diego's baseball team for 1 year." But because Korean people, in my experience, seem more focused on these kind of superstars, on these athletes and these mostly athletes and a couple of people like that, they think they can't see what the real shift that's going on, which is in American media and Western media in general. But I know I've seen it a couple of times. Like I've seen references, and I'm not going to name the shows, but in a few shows and a few movies where the Asian dude is no longer just a Chinese dude. The Asian dude in the movie, in the American movie, is no longer a Japanese dude. They don't just go to Tokyo and Beijing. They're going to Seoul. And they're going to Seoul. And when they have an Asian person in the scene, a lot of them are Korean sometimes. So I think this is a big deal. And I think a lot of Korean people can't see it, partially because of the famous people that they focus on. So that's the end of this video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate the video, give it a thumbs down. If you love me or hate me, please subscribe. Please keep the comments coming. I can't, honestly, I can't read them all. Like when I see a big block of Korean, I'm like, oh, jeez. And I try to read it and try to skim and try to get the idea and see if they like me or hate me. But it's really good to have those comments, at least for other people to see them and things like that. So please keep the comments coming. Like my Facebook page, follow me on Instagram, share this video and other videos in your Kakao chat rooms. And that's it. Have a good day.